Have you ever found yourself imagining what your life would be like if in just 6 months you could completely transform your financial reality? Maybe you're tired of struggling every day, working hard, but never achieving the freedom you desire. The truth is, many of us have been conditioned to think in a limited way, trapped in a mindset that prevents us from thriving. While some believe that wealth is a privilege for the few, the difference between a rich mindset and a poor mindset isn't just about how much money you make, but how you think and act. If you've ever felt trapped in a cycle of scarcity, where opportunities seem to slip through your fingers, know that you're not alone. The good news is that there is a way out of this situation. In this video, I'll show you how it's possible to achieve wealth in 6 months by changing the way you see money and, more importantly, changing the way you see yourself. Get ready to discover how to break free from limiting beliefs and take the first steps toward the abundant life you deserve. The oldest idea of success was to go to school, get a stable job, and invest in the stock market for a long time. But think about it. Why save money when they are printing trillions of dollars? The gap between the richest and the other 99% is enormous. It's not just about saving money. It's important to look at the big picture, to understand how the economy works. So what should you do? Inside all of us, there's a poor side. There's still a poor side in me. There's also a middle-class side, and middle-class people look for security. They want a steady paycheck and benefits. And there's the rich side, and all of these are within us, but this isn't taught. You're taught to go to school, get a job, and receive a paycheck. No one teaches you how to get rich. If you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you know that my rich dad didn't pay me. He said that a salary is one of the most harmful things you could have in life. He said, the moment you receive a paycheck, you become an employee. That's the mindset that traps people. That's why my rich dad never paid me, and that made my poor dad, who was a public servant, very upset. You have to pay people. But my rich dad wasn't saying that a salary is bad. He was saying you shouldn't be a slave to money. So, as an entrepreneur, if my rich dad lost everything, he would simply start another business without needing a steady paycheck or someone to take care of him. If the government didn't like him, he would move to another country because entrepreneurs are always needed. Being an entrepreneur isn't just about having a business, but about having a mindset, skills, and following different rules. Small businesses, for example, don't follow the same rules as large corporations. Entrepreneurship starts in the mind, developing skills and playing different roles. If you're an employee or have a small business, the rules, mindset, and skills you need are different. If I could say something to someone who has never been an entrepreneur and is thinking of trying, I would say this. Let me tell you what happened to me. I clearly remember my last paycheck. It was one of the hardest and at the same time one of the best days of my life. I was in Puerto Rico, working for Xerox, and my boss gave me one last check. It wasn't a regular paycheck. It was a bonus check. I think it was around $1,000, but it was taxable. When I received that check, I thought, I understand what this means. I was excited, but also worried. Then a co-worker named John came up to me and said, "You're going to come back." I asked why. He said, "Because you're going to fail." I looked at him and said, "Look, some curse words, because that's what he did. He left here and failed and came back." And I said, "Look, man, you failed and came back, but if I fail, I'm never coming back." And that's the attitude. Understand what I mean? Yes, yes. If you say, "Well, if I fail, I'll go back to my parents' house," that's what you'll do. So if you fail, that's when I became an entrepreneur. I was broke for years, but that's what my rich dad encouraged me to do. When you don't have a steady paycheck, you become hungrier, smarter, and it tests your character. Will you become a bad person? Will you become dishonest? Or will you become a better person? So, that's the benefit of being an entrepreneur. You find out who you are when you have nothing. That's why it's important to look at the big picture. Many people look at what's going to happen to me? But when you look at the big picture, you know that when something bad happens, something good can also happen. But you need to be prepared for whatever comes. If you think the next 20 years will be like the last, you're in for a rude awakening. When you and I go to the grocery store and buy a carton of milk, we always check the expiration date. But most people don't check the expiration date of their ideas. Instead of getting rid of debt, I use it strategically. Recently, I refinanced a $300 million debt, lowering the interest rate from 5% to 2.5%. I profited greatly from this. Every month, more money comes in because my financing cost decreased. So while some financial experts say get out of debt, I say learn to use your debt. When I returned from Vietnam in January 1973, the first thing my rich dad told me was, go to school to learn to invest in real estate. It wasn't just about real estate, but about how to use debt and taxes smartly. Debt and taxes make the rich richer and the poor and middle class poorer. That's why all the rich doctors and lawyers are being cheated and don't know why. Doctors, for example, are being cheated. Yes, they make more money, but their household income is lower. One time, my doctor came to me, happy, saying, "Oh, guess what? I finally made $1 million. And I said, "Yes, look how much you paid in taxes." He said, $750,000 in taxes, so his net income was about $400,000. That's not bad, but when I make $1 million, I keep $1 million. And the reason is that I don't earn it by working for money. See, if you work for money, you pay taxes. Lesson number 1 from Rich Dad, Poor Dad is that the rich don't work for money. Instead, we create businesses as entrepreneurs and buy real estate. I don't invest in the stock market. The reason is that as an entrepreneur, I have more control over my income, how much I earn and how much I pay in taxes. And because I'm an entrepreneur and also a real estate investor, I don't pay taxes. So every time I make, say, $1 million as an entrepreneur, I immediately invest it in real estate and make 4 times as much. So I put $1 million in real estate and get $4 million from the bank. That's why I love banks. But banks are hurting a lot of people. It's bad for them, but it's good for me. And that's why when you print money, it's good for you, but it's bad for people who work just to earn money, because when you print, savers are hurt and people who work for money are hurt. When they print, debtors get rich. See, debt and taxes make the rich richer, and debt and taxes make the poor and middle class poorer. When we have old ideas, we get old results. So, what's happening to most people? The idea of going to school, getting a job, working hard, saving money, getting out of debt, buying a house because it's an asset, and investing for the long term is outdated. The world has changed. Yes, the world changed in 1971 when President Nixon took us off the gold standard and money became debt. And if we got rid of school, what would happen? Maybe it would be better if we didn't have an educational system. I'm not saying education wasn't important before, but now it's outdated. There's Moore's Law, which says information doubles every 18 months, meaning everything became outdated in 18 months. And this is a recent phenomenon. So when you leave school, you're already outdated. And that's why I'm the oldest person I know, my friends who studied at Harvard. Look, I studied at Harvard. I said, yes. How long ago was that? 50 years. Today, banks are charging you to save money. Banks don't want your money because they print it, and that's why there's a bubble in stocks and real estate. People are getting rid of their money. As I said here, savers are losers and money is trash. And yet people say, well, I want a high-paying job. That's an outdated idea. Getting out of debt is an outdated idea. You should learn how to get into debt, how to use debt to get rich, and they will never teach you about taxes. The reason 1% of the population is at the top and 99% are going the other way is because when you print money, inflation occurs and taxes go up. Any entrepreneur who thinks they're just going to make a profit, open a business, and make a lot of money needs to really open their eyes and understand the complexity of the market. That's not what true entrepreneurs do. Most entrepreneurs look at the 28 million small business owners in the United States. Of those, 24 million are solo entrepreneurs. They are known as entrepreneurs without employees. This happens when people don't fully understand what it means to be an entrepreneur. Most self-employed people are not true entrepreneurs. The self-employed pay the highest taxes of all, and no one tells them that. Yes, this is also called the entrepreneurial spirit, but what we really discuss is that there is no bad economy. We all have an external economy, but we also have an internal economy, and willpower is about changing our internal economy. For me, I can see what's good and what's bad. I really don't care because I'm going to get rich anyway, but a poor person with a bad personal economy will only see a bad economy because they don't know how to make money in any economy. A middle-class person who belongs to the middle economic class wants a nice house, a steady paycheck, a job, and a car. So when you take their job away to them, that's a disaster. Well, since the entrepreneur doesn't have a job anyway, it's no big deal. So all I'm saying, folks, is what Buck Fair taught me. There's always two sides. Do you understand what I mean? Two is plural, at least two. So if you think the economy is bad, it's because your economy is bad. If you think a steady job is important, then you'll see an economy without jobs. Your economy versus the external economy, what you control versus what you can't control. I can control, yes. It's called internal focus versus external focus. So the true entrepreneur has an internal focus that if they fall, they say, oh, that's good because I'm going to rise higher. The average person falls and says, oh, I'm going to take a pill. Or someone makes mistakes and says, oh, mistakes don't matter. Well, mistakes do matter. It means you didn't know something. But a true entrepreneur, even if they fall, can always get back up. They can get back up and reach higher. So no matter what happens to them, they get stronger, better, smarter, happier. But people with a weak mindset are so afraid of what happens that it usually happens. For example, if people are afraid of losing their job, they usually lose their job. Do you understand what I mean? Yes, good answer. Yes, the first job of the entrepreneur is to control what's in here in the mind, not outside. The moment you receive the paycheck, you're an employee. You have to be stronger than that. It's a matter of internal control. My father was the head of education. He had a PhD. I went home and asked, why don't we learn about money in school? He looked at me and said, because the government doesn't want us to teach that subject. The government tells us what we can and can't teach. That sounded strange to me, and I said, wait, don't we go to school to learn about money? He said, no, your job is to get a job. So I said, but we get a job to make money. And he said, no, you just have to get a job. And I said, no, isn't the purpose of working to make money? And he replied, yes. I asked, so why don't we learn about money then and skip the job part? He turned frustrated and said, if you want to learn about money, why don't you ask your best friend's dad about money? It was about Mike's dad. But why him? He said, because Mike's dad is an entrepreneur. But what are you then? And he said, I'm an employee, a government employee. And I said, what's the difference? He said, the difference is that the entrepreneur has to know about money or they won't be an entrepreneur anymore. And the employee doesn't have to know anything about money because the government and the company will take care of them. I was a kid, so I was a little confused, so I just followed his advice. I went to Mike's dad's office, knocked on the door and said, I'm here, I'm 9 years old, and I want to know about money. He just turned and said, go away. And that's how the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad began. And after much persistence, my rich dad finally agreed to teach me about money with one condition. The condition was that he would never pay me. Because the moment he paid me, I would act like an employee. And that's the trap. Entrepreneurs work to be free. And that, at the height of my 9 years, was a bug in my mind. He said, never want a paycheck, my son. Understood? Okay, got it. He turned and said, How do I make money, entrepreneur? Think about it like this. So how do I learn to make money? That's when he showed me the Monopoly board game. So he had hotels, and I did things for him there. Cleaned the floor, picked up cigarette butts, little things, you know. And as I got older, I started working in the office, in marketing, in accounting. I was basically an apprentice, but always working for free. And then the way he taught me about money was by playing Monopoly. Until one day I got fed up, turned around and said, "When are you going to teach me about money?" "What do you think we're doing?" I said, "Playing Monopoly." And he said, No, what are we doing playing Monopoly?" "What are we doing then?" "I don't know." And he said, "I'm teaching you about money. For example, you're learning how to have a green house." Then he said, "There are many formulas for being successful with money. There are thousands of them, but one of the best is playing Monopoly. And it still is. 4 green houses, 1 red hotel." I said, "What?" He said, "One of the best ways to acquire great wealth is to play Monopoly in real life. Every 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel." I said, "Is that right?" And he said, "That's it. What do you think I'm doing here?" I replied that I didn't know, so he took me outside and showed me his greenhouse. 10 years passed. I was already 19 and attending school in New York. That's when I returned to Hawaii. My rich dad had already bought a piece of land larger than half of Waikiki Beach, and still today, when you go to Waikiki Beach, you see the Hyatt Regency Hotel. That hotel is his. Just like in the Monopoly game, they acquired the assets and made them bigger. He just kept what they now call the assembly, because the property wasn't that big at the time. So he had to buy all the smaller businesses, because Waikiki was a small village. He went there, bought a business, then bought another. It took some time, but he finally put together this piece of property and then built the hotel, which is now a giant hotel, and he sold it for $800 million. That's how I learned about money. I had some financial problems. There were people who stabbed me in the back. But that was good because it made me grow. It's the spirit of the thing. Yes, people who are afraid of making mistakes, as I teach in school, never grow, because in the spiritual world there is good and evil, right and wrong, up and down, and people only want to be right, to be positive. But in reality, it's not always like that. I didn't come from an extremely poor family by the standards of the time, but my family had a poverty mindset. What does that mean? Being rich or poor, being middle class, is a matter of fundamental attitude. Poverty is something that is passed on, that is taught in families. Likewise, the middle class is also taught. For people who are at home now, facing financial problems because they earn little or are unhappy despite earning a lot, doing something they don't like, maybe this is a reflection of what they learned. Common sense often teaches that you need to work hard to have something, or that rich people aren't good people. The school system, in turn, doesn't want to teach you about money because it was designed to create employees. It's important to have doctors, lawyers, and specialists, but financial education is neglected. Most people lack real knowledge about business, like accounting, debt, or taxes. It's essential to understand these things, but no one teaches this in school. When asked how my rich dad learned these lessons and my poor dad, who was educated, didn't, the answer is simple. My rich dad's father died when he was 13. At 13, he had to take over the family business and drop out of school. This was a blessing in disguise. Sometimes a blessing comes disguised as adversity. His teachers became his treasurer, accountant, lawyer, banker, and real estate agents. He had what I call real teachers, unlike school teachers who don't practice what they teach. Most school teachers don't follow practical ethics. They teach subjects they don't apply. I asked a teacher, "Professor, I'm in my 3rd year of calculus and materials resistance. Will I ever use this?" He replied, "No." "So why do you teach it?" "Because they pay me." "But have you ever used it?" "No." If I can give one piece of advice, it's this: look for real teachers who do what they teach every day. My accountants, lawyers, bankers do this daily. And that's how I learn, solving problems in my businesses. I have these professionals on speed dial because we're always solving problems together. When I share this information, the rich often say, "Don't tell them, Robert. Don't tell people what you know." But the poverty mindset is ancient. Even though I'm not religious, I remember the Bible mentions, "You will always have the poor among you." This mindset of fear is in their words. Words become reality. If someone says, "I can't" or "I won't," it becomes true for them. My educated father would say, "Do you think money grows on trees? We can't afford that." And my rich dad would say, "That's why he's poor." A poor person says, "How am I going to buy this? I'll never be able to afford it." This mindset is an escape. My rich dad would say, instead of saying, "I don't have the money for this," ask, "How can I afford this? What do I need to do to get there?" A question opens the mind. A statement closes it. When you say, "I can't afford this," your mind closes. Rugby and football have teams, but with different rules. Others play golf alone. Everyone has their own game, and in the financial game, I follow the rules of the real estate business. I tell young people, find your game. I wrote, "Rich Dad, Poor Dad," because I knew this moment would come. We live in an uncertain and frightening world, probably the most dangerous time. There has never been a global economy before. 100 years ago, a stock market crash in England didn't affect the world. Today, a crash in the United States affects the entire world. With social media, it's like we're in uncharted territory. I'm excited because I make more money when the market goes down, but for ordinary people, this is devastating. I fear a global depression. How does this affect the worker? Small business owners are worried about the next 3 months. The situation doesn't look good. People are being laid off. Companies are running out of cash. The way out is uncertain. The national debt in World War II was 25 billion. Today, they print 125 billion daily, equivalent to 5 world wars per day. They're printing so much money that it looks like a hot air balloon with a hole. They try to fix it, but the tear is too big. Our debt to GDP ratio went from 60 to 90, 105, and is heading to 120. They will continue to print money, which means savers are losing, as I predicted. The message is clear. This is the time for metamorphosis. Financial education in Rich Dad's terms is financial transformation. Metamorphosis is the evolution from an immature to an adult form, from incomplete to complete, like a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. They say there's nothing that can predict a butterfly inside a caterpillar. If you're facing financial difficulties, see yourself as a caterpillar and the current crisis as your cocoon. Will you be a victim, or will you see this as the best thing that ever happened? The crisis can inspire you to be healthier and wealthier or lead to bankruptcy. The choice is yours. It's in your mind, heart, body, spirit, attitude. This could be the best thing that ever happened physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Will you become a butterfly or be crushed like a worm? If you're in trouble today, my message is tough. The crisis is in your head. The good news is that you can change the crisis by changing your mindset. I hate to brag, but I'm financially well off because I predicted this crisis. It would be irresponsible to warn of the crisis and not prepare. The good news is that the crisis is in your head. The bad news too. You don't need job security, but meaningful work. We don't need money, but work that motivates us. That's what helps us get through tough times. The good news is that my company continues to generate consistent profits with our innovative product. The bad news is that the supply chain was disrupted, but I see this as a positive problem because it shows the high demand. We have good cash flow, which gives us financial stability. Additionally, I have solid investments in gold and silver. In real estate, I face challenges that, while difficult, strengthen me as an entrepreneur. Adopting a resilient posture is crucial. I can't afford to be discouraged and lament, saying, "The government should take care of me. What should I do now?" Go back to being an employee, entrepreneur, self-employed, or investor. Should I look for a new business, start something from scratch, or rethink my professional career? There is a structured step-by-step process on how I can prepare for these adversities. I have a friend in Panama who owns an avocado farm because he realized that people will always need to eat. Another friend is growing blueberries, while a third, in Seattle, turned his large house into small rentable apartments, significantly increasing his income by catering to temporary workers. The essential question is that everyone has the ability to do something, but it's crucial to discover what each one can do best. The rich don't work just to earn money due to high taxes. There are three main types of income: earned, portfolio, and passive income. If I have a job, that's earned income. Professions like doctors and programmers fit into this category because they work directly to earn this income. Buying an apple for 10 and selling it for 20 results in portfolio income, representing capital gains. However, passive income generated by the cash flow from investments is rarely taxed. That's why many in the United States clamor for taxes for the rich. I say, good luck, because most of these people don't understand the different types of income. The rich usually don't have traditional jobs, but assets that generate passive income. That's why formal education often doesn't teach these financial strategies. Recently, I read an article about Jared Kushner explaining how Trump and he don't pay taxes and still make millions of dollars. The journalist couldn't grasp the logic because schools don't teach the three types of income. Instead, they often judge and criticize, claiming it's a trap. We repeatedly see examples like Amazon, which also doesn't pay taxes. When confronted with complaints that this isn't fair, my response is, it depends on which side of the coin you're on. For me, it's fair because tax laws are available to everyone, not just the rich. Anyone can use them with the right financial education. I advocate financial education because without it, you'll always be at the mercy of taxes. Many people don't believe me when I say it's possible to make $1 million without paying taxes. My rich dad taught me this by playing Monopoly. 4 green houses, 1 red hotel. Ray Kroc of McDonald's also exemplifies this strategy, buying real estate to avoid paying taxes while selling hamburgers. Jeff Bezos, for example, amassed billions while paying 0 in taxes, which is perfectly legal. Most people don't do this because of a lack of financial education. Jared Kushner learned by watching real estate investments from childhood, understanding that you can make and keep your money. This understanding is crucial. It's not enough to make money. It's essential to keep it and minimize the taxes paid. This is possible thanks to tax laws, which are accessible to everyone, as long as they have the necessary knowledge. Most people are unaware of these strategies because formal education doesn't teach about money, keeping the middle class and the poor at a disadvantage. The difference between rich and poor is evident in the financial education that the rich pass on to their children. This gap is widened by an educational system that perpetuates financial ignorance. I know the game of the rich. My rich dad taught me, and you, as a banker, understand this. Lesson number 1 from Rich Dad. The rich don't work for money. The game of bankers and the rich is different from the one taught in school, and that's the essence of rich dad, poor dad. My poor dad was well educated, but financially uninformed, teaching our children without the proper knowledge about money. On the other hand, my rich dad, an entrepreneur without a degree, showed me how practical education outweighs theoretical education. Buckminster Fuller scolded me in 1983, changing my perspective on work and money. It's not about getting a job, saving money and blindly investing, but about understanding debt and taxes. It's ironic that we still encourage children to follow a financial path that benefits the system and not themselves. I learned early on that working for money limits thinking. My rich dad insisted that I work for him for free, teaching me to think like an entrepreneur and not like an employee. The mindset of seeking security in a job, paying taxes and saving is risky, especially in a system that constantly prints money. The rich make money work for them, a fundamental lesson that differentiates their financial strategies. Financial education should be a priority to empower everyone to use tax and financial laws to their advantage. This knowledge is not a privilege exclusive to the rich. It's accessible to everyone who seeks to understand and apply these financial strategies. Well, this came as a lesson before Rich Dad. I was in Sunday school. My teacher was a lovely and inspiring young woman. I was 9 years old when she asked us, "Why were the 3 wise men wise?" I, in my innocence, replied, "Because they were rich. They gave Jesus gold, frankincense, and myrrh, so they had to be wealthy." But she gently corrected, "No, that's not why." Confused, I insisted, "But they had gold, frankincense, and myrrh." She then explained, "What made them wise was the fact that they always sought the best teacher. If you want to be successful in life, you need to find the best instructors." That advice resonated with me. When my poor dad said, "Go seek your rich dad," I was just following that guidance. Since then, I have adopted the policy of seeking great teachers, those who teach from real experience. During my training, I realized the importance of genuine instructors. In flight school, my instructors knew how to fly for real, a skill demonstrated in practice. However, in traditional school, we often don't know if the teacher is competent. In my MBA program, still as a member of the Marine Corps, I encountered an accounting professor who clearly didn't understand the subject. He had a master's degree in accounting, but that didn't make him a real accountant. Confronting him, I realized that many educators lack the practical experience necessary. This episode highlighted for me the difference between theoretical knowledge and practical experience. The lack of proper financial education is a serious problem. Schools teach that anything of value is an asset, but in reality, assets are those that put money in your pocket, while liabilities take money out of your pocket. Many believe that their house and car are assets when, in fact, they drain their resources. Retirement plans are liabilities, taking money out monthly and benefiting large financial institutions. The difference between the rich and the poor lies in understanding the types of income: earned, portfolio, and passive. Passive income, like cash flow, is rarely taxed, while most people work for earned income, the most taxed. Tax inequality often causes outrage. Many don't understand that tax laws can benefit everyone, not just the rich. With the right financial education, anyone can use these laws to their advantage. The article about Jared Kushner explained how some wealthy families pay little in taxes, a concept many find unfair because they weren't taught about the different types of income. Financial education is crucial to understanding how to use these laws to your advantage and avoid the heavy tax burden that falls on those who lack this knowledge. The lack of teaching about money in schools is a strategy to keep the working class submissive. While the rich educate their children about finances, the middle class and the poor remain ignorant. If I lost everything tomorrow, with my experience and knowledge, I would know how to start over. Entrepreneurs have this resilience. They constantly reinvent themselves and adapt to new situations. They don't take no for an answer and always seek new opportunities, regardless of the environment. To be a successful entrepreneur, it's crucial to understand that ups and downs are part of the journey. Continuous learning is essential. I'm always reading, studying, and surrounding myself with other entrepreneurs, avoiding those who only complain about the economy. If I lost everything, I would simply go back to entrepreneurship because entrepreneurship is a mindset and a set of skills that apply anywhere. Financial literacy is the key to independence. To achieve positive cash flow and eventually wealth, it's necessary to reconfigure the mind. By changing the way we think about money and investments, we can open up new possibilities. With determination and the right knowledge, anyone can achieve their financial goals and build a prosperous life. I wish you a rewarding retirement with comprehensive medical benefits. This is the heart of the matter. Unfortunately, I can't help them directly because they need to reconfigure their minds. The economy happens between these ears and those, and that's where it really unfolds, in the heart and guts. First tip, use debt to move forward. This may seem completely contradictory. How can debt help you progress? As Robert says, you need to have the right kind of debt that works for you instead of being just an expense. There is good debt and bad debt. Again, this refers to the financial statement: income, expense, asset, and liability. So, debt fits in here. Let's say I go to buy a Mercedes or a house. A Mercedes? Is my house an asset? No, your house is a liability. It doesn't matter if you have no debt. A house is a liability. The same goes if you have a car. The car is a liability. The reason for this is that, as we mentioned earlier, the 6 basic words of financial education, of financial intelligence are income, expense, asset, liability, and the other 2 words are cash flow. When you look at an average person, they have a job, money comes in, they pay for their house, and the money goes to the bank through a mortgage. So, it's not an asset because the money is going out, so it's a liability. The definition of a liability is, it takes money out of your pocket, and in the case of an asset, it puts money in your pocket. So when I have a rental property, it puts money in my pocket. So if I live in the house, it's a liability because even if I have no debt on it, I still have taxes, depreciation, repairs, maintenance, insurance, and other costs. When I rent out a property, if I've done a good job buying it and structuring it every month, it sends me money. I started when I was 25 and owned a small 1-bedroom apartment. It put money in my pocket. It was a start, so that was good debt. You see, the debt was also paid, also put money in my pocket. So I was making money with my little house. Today, my wife and I own 6,500 houses, and every month, 6,500 houses put money in my pocket. The people living in them love me because they have a place to live, but all this came from strategic and well-managed debt. Third tip, find mentors. One of the most mentioned tips, but also one of the most essential, is to have a mentor who can guide you through challenging times. A mentor can help you understand your field and guide you to become the best you can be. My Sunday school teacher was a young and beautiful woman, and she said when I was 9 years old, "Why were the 3 wise men wise?" I replied, "Because they were rich. They gave Jesus gold, frankincense, and myrrh, so they must be rich." She said, "No, that's not it." I said, "Well, they had gold, frankincense, and myrrh." She said, "That's not why." "Why then were they wise?" I said, "I don't know." She replied, "They were wise because they always sought the best teacher." She said, "If you want to be successful in life, find the best teachers." Fourth tip, don't work for money. This may seem completely out of place in a video about how to become rich and successful. It's not possible to be rich without money, right? Well, actually, the reason you're not financially successful may be because you're too focused on money. But when I make $1 million, I keep $1 million, and the reason is that I don't earn it by working for money. See, if you work for money, you're taxed on it. Lesson number 1 from Rich Dad, Poor Dad is that the rich don't work for money. Instead, we create businesses as entrepreneurs and acquire real estate. I don't want to invest in the stock market because, as an entrepreneur, I have more control over my income, how much I earn, and how much I pay in taxes. Since I'm an entrepreneur and also a real estate investor, I don't pay any taxes, so every time I make, say, $1 million as an entrepreneur, I immediately invest it in real estate and get a 4-to-1 increase. So I put $1 million into real estate and get 4 million from the bank. That's why I love banks. But banks are hurting everyone. It's terrible, but it's good for me. With these tips from Robert Kiyosaki, the path to positive cash flow and getting rich is within your reach. What's your favorite tip from Robert? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to follow our videos.